Good afternoon. My name is Alan Clappett, and I've been with the City of Wilkes-Barre Fire Department since 1991. I currently hold the rank of Deputy Chief. Merriam-Webster's definition of goal is the end toward which effort is directed. When we're establishing goals, we need to be specific and do not set too broad of an objective. We need to have measurable benchmarks and make sure your goal is attainable. Do not set yourself up for failure from the start. And then reaching a goal with no relevance is a waste of time and energy. Last, set a deadline on your goal. Having an infinite finish line will leave room for excuses and procrastination. Plan, prepare, and set goals to achieve positive outcomes in personal development and mentorship, health and wellness, public relations and community engagement, and investigation and prevention. Through this program, we'll talk about the importance of setting goals in all of those and how we accomplish those goals without hitting a dead end. When we talk about goals, there is a significant correlation between personal development and mentorship. We'll talk about 4 things under this category. Clarity. Is your goal specific and easily understood? Challenge. Challenge gives you something to strive for. We need to make it difficult but achievable. And be consistent. Focus on progress over perfection. Also, confidence. Achieving success in reaching benchmarks gives you confidence to continue. Setting your own personal development goals sets the stage for you to be a successful mentor. If you cannot set and meet your own personal goals, how can you expect the same from others? We need to lead by example and do not ask others to do what you wouldn't do yourself. I will give you 2 examples of personal goals that I have set for myself throughout my career. The first was developing a fire officer mentoring program. The second was developing a probationary firefighter manual tailored to the specific needs of my department. During my onboarding nearly 35 years ago, I was handed an essentials manual and was told, "Good luck, kid." There was no formal training, there was no apprenticeship. So going through that experience led me to developing curriculum for new hires and aspiring fire officers. Through the development process, I was able to grow and learn from interaction with my fellow firefighters, sitting through working groups, and researching best practices from other fire departments across the country. The next thing I'm going to talk about is creating a culture and achieving buy-in. I'm a little torn on how often culture is used, and I think it's starting to lose its effectiveness. Is it just a 21st century catchphrase? No, the term culture has been around for 70 plus years. We need to achieve buy-in without being forced. We need to have transparent communication, inclusion in decision-making. We need to provide support and training and proactively manage concerns and conflicts. Next, we're going to talk about setting goals in health and wellness. Setting achievable physical and mental wellness goals is vital to a successful fire service career. As a fire officer, you should set the example by leading a healthy lifestyle. When you talk about physical exercise, you need to improve strength, endurance, and flexibility. Moving on to mental health practices, we need to manage stress and practice mindfulness and meditation to improve emotional well-being. Physical and mental well-being go hand in hand. If you do not have a good grip on both, failure may be right around the corner. Once again, we need to set achievable goals. Do not set a goal of 20 pull-ups in a month if you cannot do a single pull-up right now. This will only lead to frustration, loss of focus, and more likely than not, failure to meet your goal. Mental wellness goals may be a little more difficult to gauge. We need to set specific goals. Start slow with mental wellness goals. It may be a good idea to talk to your professional. Goals and community engagement. So, where do we start? Number 1, who is your audience? Number 2, how are we going to reach them? Do you have a timeline? What is your goal? And how are we going to measure success? When we talk about your audience, you will present differently to school children than you will to senior adults. How are you going to reach them? Are you going to send mailings? Are you going to do this in person? Or are you going to use social media? Or maybe we're going to do a combination of all three and include additional ways to reach them. What is your timeline? Will this be throughout the year, or will it be focused on a specific week, like Fire Prevention Week? And what is your goal? Are we talking about basic fire safety? Are we talking about how do we evacuate a house or different type of occupancy in case of an emergency? And how do we measure your effectiveness? Are you going to use questionnaires, surveys, or are you going to do in-person follow-ups? When we talk about your audience, you aren't just reaching the public, you're reaching specific high-risk groups. We're going to talk about vulnerable populations, such as seniors with high medical and fire risk, special needs individuals, and families with young children. We'll talk about property owners, specifically those in multi-unit buildings where actions or lack of action affect more than themselves and their family. Local businesses, owners who need to understand fire and electrical codes. And then diverse communities. Use GIS mapping and other tools to identify underserved areas where English may not be the primary language. The goal of community engagement and community risk reduction is to educate and reduce risk in as much of the population as possible. Your message may be the same, but the way it is presented will be different based on the audience. High-risk groups are the most vulnerable, and consideration should be given on making them a priority. When we talk about community risk reduction, we'll cover a few topics. Education. When we talk about education, we need to use public outreach programs such as school visits, smoke alarm education, cooking safety, and CPR training. Engineering, such as installing smoke alarms, conducting wildfire risk evaluations, or improving building exit access. Another part of this is enforcement, conducting fire inspections and enforcing fire codes to ensure safety in residential and commercial buildings. And then there are economic incentives, using incentives to encourage safety investments such as subsidized sprinkler systems or smoke detectors. And last, we have emergency response. We need to analyze past incident data to optimize resource deployment, ensuring firefighters are positioned to manage specific community risk. When we talk about goal, it is important that we talk about metrics. First is output metrics, such as number of smoke alarms installed, event attendance, or social media outreach. This will help us determine if what we are presenting is being effective. Outcome metrics, a measurable reduction in preventable fire incidents, higher percentage of fires contained to the room of origin, and increased citizen satisfaction scores via digital surveys or other type of feedback. When we talk about community risk reduction, we'll cover a few topics. Education. When we talk about education, we need to use public outreach programs such as school visits, smoke alarm education, cooking safety, and CPR training. Engineering, such as installing smoke alarms, conducting wildfire risk evaluations, or improving building exit access. Another part of this is enforcement, conducting fire inspections and enforcing fire codes to ensure safety in residential and commercial buildings. And then there are economic incentives, using incentives to encourage safety investments such as subsidized sprinkler systems or smoke detectors. And last, we have emergency response. We need to analyze past incident data to optimize resource deployment, ensuring firefighters are positioned to manage specific community risk. So when we talk about this, we need to establish a timeline. First, we'll talk about short term. Center major outreach around community risk reduction. We can do this during Fire Prevention Week. Then we talk about midterm, somewhere between 1 and 2 years. Implement pilot programs for new technologies like drone-assisted property risk assessments. This can be done with the fire department in combination of your code enforcement division. And then we talk about long-term, 5 years or more. Align with your department's strategic plan, ensuring community engagement goals are tied to budget cycles and staffing levels. Next, we'll talk about goals in investigation and prevention. Setting goals is a vital part of having successful fire investigation and fire prevention programs. Both of these are specialized fields that require training and experience and teamwork. What training is required and what is the timeline to complete the training? Are you satisfied with the minimum required training, or should you set a goal to obtain the highest level of training possible? Are we basing your training on NFPA 921, training at the National Fire Academy or ATF? Do we do strictly local level training? And are we attending International Association of Arson Investigation training and seminars? So what does your department require for you to become a fire investigator? Is it on-the-job training, or are they going to send you away for specialized training at the NFA or at the ATF? Does your local jurisdiction require Pro Board and IAAI certifications? And are your requirement goals in line with, or do they exceed those of the jurisdiction you work in? While setting goals in fire investigation, we need to determine what you want to accomplish. We need to prevent future fires. Use the findings to recommend changes in building codes, safety regulations, or fire prevention strategies. Part of your goal can be to identify product defects, detect consumer products that may be faulty. Has there been a recall on the product, or should the CPSC be contacted about the product? And public education. Provide data to develop educational programs targeting specific hazards, such as the improper use of space heaters. While setting goals in fire investigation, we need to determine what you want to accomplish. We need to prevent future fires. Use the findings to recommend changes in building codes, safety regulations, or fire prevention strategies. Part of your goal can be to identify product defects, detect consumer products that may be faulty. Has there been a recall on the product, or should the CPSC be contacted about the product? And public education. Provide data to develop educational programs targeting specific hazards, such as the improper use of space heaters. As we wrap up, I hope you have a better understanding on the importance of setting goals. As you rise through the ranks, continue to set goals for yourself. It's also important to continue to listen, learn, and share your knowledge and experiences with the next generation. Thank you, and have a great day.